Okay, so this is chapter 1, and me and Aaron are going to do this together so you kind of get used to both of us doing the lectures for this chapter. And chapter 1 is basically a really good overview of all the chapters to come. So we're just going to give you a really brief intro to each one of those. It starts off with a quote, together we face any challenges as deep as the ocean and as high as the sky. So this chapter 1 really talks about building an agency and all the components that are required within that agency, and it focuses on human service organizations. And when we build an agency, we always have to have a goal in mind of what is the goal of this organization in the first place, and how are we going to make a difference to the people that we serve. Let's see. Anytime that we talk about human service agencies, we really talk about how they provide services to the community. That is their specific thing. But they're going to look a lot different in a whole lot of different ways, and that's one of the things we're going to go over. But first and foremost, people that we serve is the first priority, and to truly understand that, we also have to truly understand that those needs are going to change over time. We've got to constantly evaluate our programs and our organization. Excuse me. You want to start off on this one, Aaron?
Sure. Yeah, so this next slide talks about some different types of human services agencies. The first one is community agencies, and in Virginia, where I live, we call those community service boards. I know that other places call it community mental health, but these agencies provide a specific geographic area. They have their catchment area is what they call it, right? And so they might cover one county or 2 or 3 counties even, but their goal is to meet the needs of that geographic area. And that was kind of the best example for that one that we could think of. The next one talks about agencies might have a focus on a particular issue. So they might be concerned with substance use, or maybe they just do mental health, maybe developmental disabilities. And so different agencies, like I think of medication assisted treatment providers. Savita is a big one in my area, right? And so that's their goal, is to provide medication assisted treatment to substance use. Other programs will have different population or specific issue that they want to help with.
Yeah. So where your community agencies above might have all of these different programs within their agencies, there are agencies that really have a very narrow focus. And that,
Yes, well said.
yeah, and that takes us to population agencies that meet needs of a particular culture, age group, or gender. And so I think some of the programs that we thought on this one was like women's shelter, maybe programs specific for like the LGBT community. I don't know if you can think of any more that we thought of a while ago.
Now, one thing I thought of was sometimes programs have different age groups in mind. So some might only work with youth and some might work with adults. There are certain programs that work with geriatric, right? So elderly. And so it varies. Their specific focus might vary based on that.
And then there's programs or agencies that are very focused on specific populations in a way of how that they provide a service. So they might be like a GED class or a rehabilitation agency that helps people either change jobs or because of a disability find a new career that they can function well at. And then there's agencies like Move On, different agencies. I think there was another one I can't think of what it was, but you can chime in there if you remember it. That works with the legal system.
Oh, yeah, the NAACP. And then there's Innocent Project
Innocent
that help.
projects. That's
Yeah,
what I was thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, and so
Hmm.
those don't have it like clients like your regular agencies do. They are focused more on um, justifications in the legal system or advocating for different policies and procedures on behalf of a population. And so those are like 5 ways that agencies can look different. And then we're going to move on to how they're funded, and those are either for profit or non for profit. Um, Not profit agencies, their their revenue can be grant funded, grassroots. It can be funded in different ways, but the end of the road, where at the end of your fiscal year of your agency, where you're doing your balanced budget, if you have a for profit agency, those surpluses go to the people that own it or the board that runs it. Where a nonprofit, it goes back into the programs itself in some way. And then you have a third category, which is fully government funded. And as I go on to the next slide, was there anything that you wanted to do as far as tying that one into how that can be grant and government?
Yeah, I know, like, an example of a government agency is usually like Department of Social Services or CPS. They're funded by their government. Um, Now, CSBs or community mental health are kind of a mix between, right, nonprofit and government. Usually the government funds them some, but they also have to rely on billing and grants and different things to keep them going. Um, so that's kind of that one can kind of go both ways.
And whether you have a very focused agency or a very broad agency like a community service board, there's often programs within that to be even more narrow focused than the whole agency itself. And in order to make these things happen, we have to have a management system of some kind. And the big role of a person in management is to develop a plan. What does it look like? What do we need to make this? What do we need to make it happen? How do we get everybody to buy into it? And what all has to be done by different people? Delegating those. And then once you get it going, you always have to evaluate it, and then you have to make decisions of how to fix things after you've evaluated, or at least make it better. So you want to revise the original plan. Um, there's other things that you have to think about when you're looking at that is dealing with bottom line. We're always working for people. And when you work for people, you don't get to just pigeonhole and work with this one person. It always is going to involve those micro meso systems, of their families and the communities in which they live. And whether you're doing direct services, face to face with a client, providing them something very direct, you're also going to have instances where you have to do indirect things, advocating for them, or trying to get them, link them to other places, find resources. But overall, a mental health agency's goal is to help enhance the well being of the clients we serve. And in order to do that, we have to remember that that's the positive focus, is that's what we do, positive change.
Something I thought of with this positive change piece is, you know, we don't want to forget our primary purpose or our mission. Like, what are we doing here? And so even if you have, like, say, for example, a for-profit company, their primary mission is supposed to be to help people. Making a profit is kind of like a plus, right? Like, that's cool, but we don't want to lose sight. We don't want to become an agency that's more focused on a profit than helping people, because then, right, we kind of flip-flopped what our main focus should be.
Yeah, making the board members money is not the focus.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets really hard depending on that management style and that leadership style, which is why, this class is kind of cool because you get to do that. Like you get to see how does that going to come from the top up, bottom down type idea. And according to Taylor and Felton, there's 4 interdependent elements in all agencies. And the first one of that is the goal of transformation. Like we want something to transform, right? We want our clients or the communities or however we're providing our services, we want there to be a change to where people improve or problems that were there just no longer exist. They're gone. So that there's something has transformed. And then there's also the need to pay the bills. Like people don't want to come to work and work for free. So we've got to make sure that we can pay payroll. We've got to make sure we keep the lights on, the doors open. Um, and then you've got the so that's kind of like the upper management stuff, but then you've got the actual people that do the job. You've got things going on like clicks. What is the culture? I think we've all can understand how negativity can be very infectious in a workplace and how that can guide people's feelings and impact their ability to want to come to work and be positive. And then so you've got that phenomena of how people interact with each other. Plus you have individual things. You have people that have specific needs themselves, and understanding the people that you manage, how to motivate them individually, what type of person they are, and the expectations and what skill sets. Some of us are a lot better at some things, and then we're better at others. So just understanding that about each individual that we manage is an incredibly important management skill. Um, every agency has a mission statement. Lindsay has a mission statement, and we everything has to be umbrellaed under that mission statement. So how we treat the people that are that we manage is very important, and that's just as important as the way that we design our management team and how information trickles down and what value we give to the employees that we look at and design our departments. So this is going over I think there's 7 functions of management. The first one is planning. This is the real everyday stuff. Like how do you do timesheets? What are the policies? What are the procedures? How often do you have to turn stuff in? It's the very day to day. Can you think of anything else there? Examples?
Yeah, trainings, or what qualifications do people have to provide different services? Like, do you have to have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree to provide this? How are we going to bring people in? Who's going to work for us? Just that entirety, right, of how this program's going to work.
And then you have to design it. Like, what does it look like? What does that structure look like? And who's over what? What are people's individual roles under each department or program? And then some additional aspects of design is the chain of command and how do we communicate. There's a lot of times agencies will have a faculty and staff section, and a lot of times those communications only interact at the top. Like you're totally 2 different departments, and only the upper realms coordinate with what's going on, because there's no hierarchy from the staff to faculty. It's just 2 different departments. And that's why you always want to go back to what your mission and goals and your overall view of your agency's needs are, because that's how you form your strategies. And we're not given this a lot, and I realize we're going over this very brief, but like this design is a whole chapter in like chapter 5. So we're just kind of give you an idea. Developing human resources. Human resources has a lot of functions within a system, as far as like your insurance, your pay, getting resources for your employees if they need an EAP, an employee assistance program to have therapy of their own, or what type of, or even how do we hire these people? What are our interview procedures, and making sure that there's not you know checking checking references and all that stuff. Human services is a really big part of any program. And then when you get people hired, you have to supervise them. What does that look like? How is that? A clinical supervisor? Is that a clinical and administrative supervisor, or just an administration person? And so those are multiple tasks of knowing what that organization needs in supervision. What level of skill does that person need, and how do they continue to move people toward growth? Especially in our field, right? It's really important as a supervisor to know that people are not getting burnt out, that what kind of load, Aaron was talking about that issue that we're going to have always when we have for-profit agencies where the bottom line is not a balanced budget. They want a surplus because people want to get paid at the top. And so how do you keep people from having a 50 people caseload instead of the norm of a 30 just for profit, and allowing people to have a satisfying job and not getting burnt out, and addressing those needs of your employees? Managing finances. Somebody's got to do the books. Somebody's got to do the budget. You got to be able to pay the bills, keep the doors open, buy supplies. You don't want to come to work with a candle, like none of us do.
And we all want to get paid. So
yeah. And so it really talks about how, like, these functions for human service management, how, like, that may change whether you're trying to advocate for, like, right now the ACA is advocating that counselors per session don't have an equitable pay. That's something that's been legislatively approached. And those are going to look different. How people get reimbursed are going to look different whether you're at a private or for-profit agencies, whether you're having third payer billers and self-pay, those type of things. It's just going to look different. And then, as always, we continue. We're back to our number 6. We got to track the progress that the agency's making, each program's making, be able to evaluate it and look at it. And Aaron, as I go through these last 2 slides, just jump in here, but like, it's totally how your agency runs and how your people react is all about leadership.
It is. And if you've I've had great leadership and not so great leadership, and I can definitely see how an example is sometimes you have coworkers that don't want to carry their fair share, and then there's those that are more eager and end up doing more of the work, and then they end up frustrated and resentful, and so that's an example of how, like, if you don't have like some appropriate leadership, you'll have this division within your agency, and people will get burnt out and tired and leave, and so it's so important, right, to have good leadership.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that's got us started on chapter 1, and we'll be breaking all of those little components down through each chapter as we go.